Welcome back to a new episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. I have something kind of fun, exciting, and different for you. We're still at my home in Montana, which I'm excited to show you a little bit more about kind of the ambiance and the landscape that I grew up with, and I get to kind of show you a little bit of what that's all about. But today, we're going to be using Broken Arrow Ranch wild boar sausage, and then also some quail legs. And I'm gonna be making my version of gumbo with the quail and the wild boar sausage. And I know if you're a purist out there, I might not make it your way, so don't come attack me. Trust me, I understand. This is gonna be my version, so we're all good with that. Stick around while I bring the forest to your table. All right, so I've got some of the elements started because they take so long. One of that is a roux. So one of the things to know about roux is it's really simple. It's just equal parts fat and flour. And so what I've done here is taken butter, but you can use oil, but you have to babysit it. You can't let that go. So I've got a nice light brown roux here. When you start, it's usually the color of flour, and that's a white or a light roux. And then as you cook it and babysit it, it develops nuttiness. But one of the things to know is the darker the roux, the less thickening power you have. So it really kind of depends on what you're doing on the end result as to how dark of a roux you want to use. So if you need extra thickening, you want to leave it a little bit more blonde. So I've also got my okra back here, and what you want to do is what they call de-slime your okra. So if you cook that in a pan on its own, it'll actually, the stringiness and stuff starts to come out of the okra, and that's the bitterness, and we don't really want that. So we de-slime our okra. That's looking pretty good, and I'm really happy with my color of my roux, so I'm excited about that. Now what I do with my gumbo is I'm going to take half of my Trinity. Now the difference in Cajun cooking, because that's what we're doing today is Cajun, is we use a Trinity. The Trinity is, like mirepoix is carrot, onion, and celery. The Trinity is bell pepper, onion, and celery. So I'm gonna take half of my Trinity, and we're gonna saute that up with the roux just to soften it a little bit. And then we'll use the other half a little bit later. So let's get that started. And then goes the bell pepper. Perfect. Set those aside, and I'm just going to kind of stir that around a little bit and let those kind of soften just a little bit, but then I'm going to shut my heat off and let that wait for a minute while I finish and go working on my quail and wild boar from Broken Arrow Ranch. Super excited to show you this. Such a high quality, wonderful flavor of a product. So how I'm going to do that is I'm first going to do the quail, and quail is so delicate. It's going to be one of those fast little sear, because what I'm trying to do is really kind of develop I'm going to turn the fan on a little bit here, is develop some color, but also we're taking some of that flavor of the quail. So I'm going to get that quail, and what I'm going to do here is we're going to treat that. I've got just a little bit of oil in that pan. I'm going to use some of my blackening Cajun spice, and I'm just going to lightly dust this quail with some of those Cajun spices, and then I'm going to lay it in there in the pan, and this is going to be a fast and furious little quick sear, and then we're going to remove it and set it aside. But I want those create that caramelized and wonderful crust on the outside of that quail. So let me get these seared off, and then we'll go to the next step. So I'm going to dust, now that they're all in there, I'm going to dust this side too. And that's just developing that very first line of flavor. So that's what I really want to do here. And I've got a pot boiling back here, or getting ready to boil. I'm going to mix some rice. but we're gonna start kind of where I started and put things down, and we don't want to overcook this. Quail is so delicate, but I just want to kind of get a sear on that outside skin, and then we're going to set it aside, and then we're going to start doing the boar and the rest of the ingredients. And remember how I said it will tell you when it's ready to flip. So a couple of those I tried and they weren't ready because they wouldn't release right away. Food talks to you. You just gotta listen. Beautiful. Oh my gosh, it smells so good in here. Oh, I'm so excited to try this. Perfect. Now just going to be another probably 30 seconds on this side, and then I'm going to remove them from the pan. Okay, looks like those are about ready to come out, and again, they're not cooked all the way through. We just seared them off, but we're going to kind of keep all of that beautiful rendered fat from the outside of that quail skin in that pan. And we're going to utilize that. Let's set that aside. And now we're going to go in with our wild boar sausage. And what I like to do here is, again, it's the same thing. I want to get some color on this because we're rendering that fat on the wild boar, and it creates this beautiful crust. I want that crust. But again, we're going to set it aside, and after we cook it, we'll add it over there, and then we'll finish off all of our other ingredients, combine it all together, and add some homemade stock, and then be able to finish with a few other ingredients that are kind of special you'll want to stick around for. So now I've browned off my sausage. I'm going to finish that other half of the mirepoix in this beautiful rendered fat. Or excuse me, Trinity. See, I'm used to the French term. But in Cajun cooking, in Creole cooking, we use Trinity. French cooking, we use mirepoix. So I'm going to get these things softened up. I'm also going to get some of those beautiful bits off of there. And then I'm going to add in my okra that has been de-slimed, and just kind of work that around again. We want to get all of those beautiful, sorry, I'm screeching on the cooktop. We're going to get all of those beautiful sooks on the bottom of that pan. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and add in my roux with the other half of the Trinity. Wonderful. Now these things are just going to kind of get a little bit translucent and release some of their beautiful aromatics and flavor. And then we're going to add some stock. And one of the things I wanted to kind of show you too on my stock, so this is the homemade stock. And a stock is made with bones. And when you have a real bone, properly made stock, it's actually gelatinous. And that, because it's the collagen and stuff from the bones and the marrow and so forth. But that helps also thicken your sauces. So it's a beautiful thing when you're able to make your own, or if you buy it probably in the refrigerated section or the frozen section, you can get true, real stock that's made from bones. Broth is made from the meat. Stock is made with bones, and that's the difference there. So those are kind of softening up a little bit, and now I'm going to go in with my stock, and see, it's just beautiful, rich. And that, we're going to have that come back to a boil. And this is another thing for you gumbo purists. So there's different versions, I think, of gumbo, same as there's different versions of Irish stew and boeuf bourguignon. Everybody's got their own version. So I like okra and I like filet. So I actually use both, but never, ever, ever, ever put filet in to boil. Because if you boil filet, it turns stringy and you'll get these long, kind of unpalatable and not fun things of the string. You don't want to boil filet. It completely ruins it, makes it bitter. It's a finishing herb only, and a little bit goes a long way. So we're going to let this come to a boil. Then I'm going to add my brown sausage and my quail leg back in and kind of let it finish in this. We're going to season this up with some more Cajun seasoning. So I'm going to add just this, again, it depends on your palate. If you like it a little spicy, then maybe you want to have a little bit more spice. If you don't, you can back off or add some at the end. Perfect. And I've got a bay leaf in there. So now this is a stew. This is a Cajun stew. And I did learn, so I did go to learn the difference between Creole and Cajun. And Creole has a little bit more of the tomato base. Cajun is always a brown gravy. Creole is a red gravy. Those are the difference. If you want to know the Creole and Cajun, I like to learn different cuisines from the locals and actually how they make it. So that's what I learned. Now I've made a couple of spins for my own and making it with some game, because technically it should be maybe sausage and shrimp or chicken and shrimp or chicken and sausage. But I'm making this with Broken Arrow Ranch, wild boar sausage, and quail legs. So let's let that come to a simmer, and then I'll add my meats back in, and we'll just put a lid on it and let it kind of marry and thicken and make this beautiful gravy. Keep watching. So here we are with my Montana gumbo, and I have used Broken Arrow Ranch, wild boar sausage, and quail legs. So, and I've also used my Montana Flavor to Savor blackening spice. So this is the Cajun spices there, and it's beautifully, so many things in there. We've got oregano and the cayenne, and everything's already in there. I suppose I should be saying cayenne. That probably was not the right accent. Don't tell me on social media I said that wrong. I know I did. So what I want to do now is just kind of, I put a little bit of rice in the center, and so we're just going to scoop up some of this beautiful gumbo. And I do have a crew member who is from Lafayette. Now, I think I said that right. He's nodding at me. So, he said this gumbo was Chaffalaya ready. I think I said that pretty close. So, he gave me, I did okay. I did okay, even though it's a Montana gumbo, maybe not a purist version, but he liked it pretty well. So we're gonna plate this up, and one of my things too, is I want to have, you know, when you're garnishing and so forth, you want to garnish with the things that are inside the dish. So, you know, a lot of times people will use parsley or mint or fresh herbs of some kind. So because, you know, this is Cajun, this is, you know, a poor man's stew, and we use celery, and there's celery greens, so you want kind of a little pop of freshness. It's a perfect way to use kind of those little bits of celery greens and gives you a little pop of freshness in there. So there we go with my Montana gumbo with wild boar and quail legs from Broken Arrow Ranch. And you can't have Montana gumbo without my Montana Flavor to Savor blackening spice. So look for that at montanaflavortosavor.com. You can check me out on social media at Chef Shelly Meyer. Keep watching while I bring the forest to your table in my next episode. This episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen was sponsored by Broken Arrow Ranch. Go to brokenarrowranch.com.